Something in the New York Post yesterday, a story by Kyle Smith. You remember the woman who had multiple personality disorder, Sybil? Made a movie out of it? Total hoax. A total fraud. Never happened. Made up by the author and some psychiatrists for fun and profit. And since then, there have been 40,000 cases of multiple personality disorder diagnosed. After the story of Sybil was published, multiple personality disorder became an officially recognized diagnosis. 40,000 unfortunate patients being diagnosed. Sybil was a real person, but her case and her story was a 100% 24-carat hoax. And Kyle Smith wrote about it in the New York Post yesterday. So here we have a real, live, recent case of an agenda-driven hoax becoming scientific consensus and a popularly accepted concept that real decisions were based on. Sound familiar? Sound familiar, folks? Does it not sound exactly what's happened with global warming? Sybil, the shocking true story of a woman shattered into 16 distinct personalities that helped her to dig up repressed memories of monstrous childhood sexual abuse. Sold nearly 7 million copies when it was published in 1973. A serialized version ran in newspapers around the country as readers gasped at scenes of Sybil's demented mother defecating on lawns, conducting lesbian orgies, and raping her daughter with kitchen utensils. This kind of sex and perversion had never before been published on the women's pages, writes author Debbie Nathan in a new book. Sybil was adapted into an Emmy-winning TV miniseries starring Sally Field and Joanne Woodward that was viewed by 1/5 of the American public, and it was an utter fraud. In her darkly absurd new account, Sybil exposed the extraordinary story behind the famous multiple personality case. Debbie Nathan draws on a cache of letters at the John Jay College of Criminal Justice that reveals how 3 women, all now dead, created what they called Sybil Inc. for fun, fame, and profit. It was all a scam. It was all a scam. Sybil's real name was Shirley Mason. She was a jittery girl who grew up quivering on a Minnesota family of Seventh-day Adventists who believed that the world was about to end and that any fiction divorced from God's truth was a sin. As a little girl, she was so terrified of God's watchful eye that when she made up stories, she hid this habit from her parents. She was also made to participate in a health fad of the day, the internal bath, or enema. She developed a germ phobia and at one point examined her hands obsessively. As a student in New York City in the 50s, she met a Park Avenue therapist named Cornelia Connie Wilbur. The 2 women adored each other, even as Connie gradually got Shirley, i.e. Sybil, hooked on a series of therapeutic drugs, many of them new and seemingly wondrous, including Seconal, Demerol, Edrosal, and Deprizal. The last 2 were so addictive that they were soon banned. Connie, the therapist, also strongly believed in giving patients pentothal, which invariably got them blabbing, sometimes about fantasies that could not possibly have occurred. Still, the drug was widely believed to be a truth serum. One day, Shirley started talking about blackouts in which she claimed she became others with various names and personalities: Peggy Lou, Peggy Ann, Vicky. Fascinated, the therapist said, "Would you like to earn some money?" She suggested that her patient could be the subject of a book. Connie offered to pay Shirley's medical school tuition and living expenses. The personality split was a lie. Shirley confessed in a 5-page 1958 letter that Sybil, Shirley is Sybil, she admits that it was a lie in a 1958 5-page letter that sits in the archives at John Jay College. She said that she was none of the things I pretended to be. She continued, "I don't have multiple personalities. I don't even have a double. I'm all of them. I've essentially been lying as trying to show you I felt I needed help. Quite thrilling. Got me a lot of attention." Okay, fine and dandy. Big deal. No, it is a big deal because this is exactly how we're being played. How many other hoaxes and frauds? Particularly in psychotherapy. What about ADD? tension, restless legs, all of these things, all of these maladies. I know even now, as you listen to me, you're getting mad at me if you have restless legs. It's real. You better not. Attention deficit disorder, parasitic. Just telling you, folks, all women have multiple personality disorder. I mean, if you want to get down to brass tacks, but not in a clinical sense. You never know what you're going to get from day to day. But I mean, that's the fun of it. That's the stereotypical caricature. But these people perpetrated a hoax. 40,000 women were diagnosed with this thing. Everybody, it's not hard. Let's put it this way. It's not hard to find people who want to believe they're screwed up and need help. You know how easy that is? And you know how profitable it is? You know how many people that are easily manipulated? Tell them that they're screwed up, and because everybody thinks they're screwed up, and everybody wants to be fixed from it, and everybody thinks it's a trip to the shrink away or a drug or what have you. If you look at this again, the way it all shook out after the story of Sybil was published, multiple personality disorder became an officially recognized diagnosis. 40,000 patients were diagnosed with this. It doesn't exist. Turns out the story of Sybil was a 100% hoax. So here we have a real live recent case of an agenda-driven hoax becoming scientific consensus, quote unquote, and a popularly accepted concept that real decisions were based on. Real lives were affected. I have to tell you, I was not surprised whatsoever. The level of, what is the word I'm looking for? The lack of trust that I have for anything, any institution dominated by liberals, is hard to quantify. My level of distrust is so high. Media, science, education, I don't care where you go, those people have corrupted and polluted every institution they run. And we see the results wherever we look in this country. The United States Congress, the White House, wherever they have dominated for a significant amount of time, you have perverse corruption, lies, outright fraud and hoaxes, all for the express purpose of controlling people, all because they want to control everybody. Now, who do you think's in charge of this stupid Occupy Wall Street thing? The same bunch of fraudsters, the same bunch of liars, the same bunch of hoaxers. Nothing is real anywhere dominated by liberals. Nothing is real. If there is a liberal political agenda attached to it, it isn't real. Charlie Gasparino has a piece in the also in the New York Post. He went down and actually talked to some of these protesters down there, and he was like everybody else has gone down there and done that. He came away with quite a stark reaction. And his advice is, for example, tell the president, you don't want to be anywhere near this. These people are, whether they know it or not, a bunch of Marxists. This is not just about redistributing wealth. This is about total revolution. That's what the people who think that they're doing with this thing think it's about. And he made an interesting observation. Also absent was any notice of how the much-hated banks benefited not from free market capitalism, which would have let them fail in 2008, but rather from crony capitalism that bailed them out. Now, these people are down there hating the banks, hating capitalism, where if capitalism had been allowed to run its course, these banks would have failed. They would not have been bailed out, and these people would be poor and penniless and maybe in jail if the market had been allowed to rule. And yet what happened? Capitalism was superseded by the notion that they were too big to fail, and big government stepped in and bailed them out. It was exactly the kind of government these people claim they want that led to the circumstances that tick them off. Folks, I just have to tell you, it's getting harder and harder for me each day to suffer fools. My patience for stupidity is waning. You know, I got to be honest with you. I haven't laughed about anything in a long time. I wish I could. None of this is funny to me. And it really, that too is bumming me out. None of this is all this rot gut